47 years, like Mark said, in the window business. After high school, started with a guy there in Greenville, Carroll Siding Company, and learned how to do a lot of different things,
Sure.
remodeling, siding, windows, all types of home improvements. Transitioned from there. I was an installer originally, promoted to general manager after about 4 or 5 years, so in my mid-20s.
Still in Greenville?
Still in Greenville. Actually, we opened a Rockwall office in Rockwall, Texas, right out east of Dallas there. And I ran that office for about 3 years. Finally had to close it down there in the late 80s. I think everybody had that, that issue.
We were closed down too.
Mortgage
was closed down.
Mortgages were not that great
I get
either.
that.
Yeah,
I get that.
So,
yeah. We were all closed for business.
Exactly. So we kind of had to close that office. We kept the one in Greenville. I went back there, worked for a few more years, and then actually married my wife in 1990. I did my business in Paris, Texas, which is another town of about 25,000 people.
Yeah, all East Texas.
All East Texas stuff. I did pretty much the same thing I did with Ralph Carroll, which was siding, windows. I actually did spas and pools. I actually built in-ground pools and sold spas.
Wow.
So that was kind of part of my business. But Paris, Texas, fundamentally was not a great place to be for that type of, because there were local guys that had that business pretty much wrapped up.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come in as the guy that nobody knows, I did a pretty good business, but it really wasn't substantial enough to stay in business there. There was a lot of hometown competition.
Sure.
And they got most of the business, which
they dominated
the market.
Yeah.
So ended up moving. My wife got a transfer to Austin, Texas with the state of Texas, Child Protective Service worker. And
what year was that?
That was 1992.
Okay.
We ended up
so it's been a while.
Yeah, been a while. Been in Austin since 92. Started my business per se in Austin. Was actually installing for a lot of the bigger companies here in town, doing siding, windows, patio covers, sunrooms, screen rooms. So pretty much exterior home improvements. Transitioned out of the installing for the bigger companies into my own business, probably in about 1998, 99.
Okay.
I actually kind of started my own business and was more doing my own sales, installs, but still continued to install for some of the bigger companies just to keep to make ends meet,
sure.
I guess you'd say.
Sure.
2013, I started Window Pros, which is my company now.
Yeah.
We have a website presence, and of course we have a lot. My customer base is referral based.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Just like we did Mark and Shara's windows.
And we were referred to you by a friend of Shara's.
Correct, by a friend of Shara's.
Yeah.
I had done windows for her.
Right.
And she referred us to Shara, and of course we ended up doing the job for you and Shara. Fantastic, great people, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, man.
Really enjoyed it.
I appreciate
really
that. I appreciate that. Well, we were just really impressed with the work because my wife can be one that really requires a high level of expertise in whatever work that we hired out, and she loved you. So
sure.
That speaks volumes, people. And I'll say it again, it speaks volumes about David's work. But let's talk about your expertise, in particular around windows.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have other things you can do, but I guess your business right now with Window Pros is specifically around windows.
It's specifically windows and doors.
Okay.
That's our primary business.
That's your primary business.
Our primary business.
So and again, I'm not a fix-it guy. I'm not a handyman. I don't know much about construction. When I see a window, I kind of take it for granted,
Yeah.
And so when my wife said, well, we need to replace these windows, I said, okay. I always say, okay.
You always do. You have to.
I don't know what else
I have one of those at home too.
So I said, okay. But I'm thinking, why? And so one of the questions is, why do people choose to replace windows and doors? Is it aesthetics? Is it insulation? What is it?
I think it's more energy efficiency.
Okay.
Is probably their primary goal. Let's just use your house as a case.
Sure.
To use it.
Sure.
So y'all had the old double pane builder grade aluminum frame windows, which is what we've replaced most of the time. 95% of our work is probably that type of window.
Because of cost?
Because of cost. Yeah. So the builders will install a very minimal window in homes. Even to this day, even the new builders, it's a lot better window now, of course, than it used to be 30 years ago, but it's still a builder grade window. So not the best window, it's not bad, but it's not even a middle of the road window a lot of times. And what I mean by that, there's several different grades of windows, and we can go into that.
Yeah, let's talk not right now, but in a minute. Let's talk about the grades too.
So energy efficiency and aesthetics. I have a lot of people that want to replace them. They say they have white windows, they want to do black windows. Black is very popular now. You see it throughout the Austin area, especially on the new builds. You see a lot of black.
You mean
windows.
The frame?
The frame around the window, yes, sir. Yeah, frame around the window. Sell a lot of those. I would say almost 40 to 50% of my work now is black frame windows, which is
that
crazy.
A trend? You think it's
I think it's a trend. Thing? I think it's a trend. I don't know that it's temporary or not. Because I think that's where it's going. It's trending. It's trended there already. But I think it's going to stay there for a while. I think it'll stay there for a while.
Because we went white.
Yeah, you went with white. Yeah. Which is very common. Yeah. Do a lot.
I think they look great.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic. They're real clean.
Yeah.
Energy efficient. Low E glass packages. New Balance. Yeah, everything's new on them.
Yeah.
So it's like buying a brand new car.
Love it. So speaking of, let's talk about the lifespan real quick about windows. We just put these in about a month ago or 6 weeks ago.
Sure.
And we may not be in this house for very long, but assuming we were, what can we expect, you think?
I would say a minimum of 20 years.
Okay.
A minimum 20-year lifespan. Most of the warranties on the windows that I have are going to be limited lifetime. That's going to cover frame, mechanics, balancers, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Latches, locks, those types of things. And the glass warranties are typically around 20 years.
Okay.
So, on your windows, if you had them installed this year, like we did for y'all, 20 years from now, they're still going to be warranted up to a certain point. It's a limited lifetime, but it's a great warranty because the typical builder grade windows that you see now are a 5-year warranty. So they're very minimal.
Okay.
Yeah, very minimal.
Okay.
I have some that are lifetime warranty. There's a few of those out there. They're a little more expensive, so depending on what price point you want to go into,
sure,
you can choose, between those.
I don't think about warranties for a window too often because what's going to happen?
Well, there's not a lot that does. So seal failure, what they call seal failure between the two panes of glass, those are all double pane, sealed units. Sometimes the low E will fail or the seal will fail, which means that somehow the seal is broken between the two panes of glass. You'll either see a condensation or a fogging, or you'll see a kind of a goldish color, a low E failure. It's actually the coating of the low E is getting deformed on the inside, and that's actually warranted. That's part of the 20-year warranty on the glass. So that's basically a free replacement.
I mean, I'm sort of embarrassed, but I'm not really sure what we bought. What did we buy?
That's a good question, Mark. You bought the Pella.
Is that a good one?
It's a good one. Pella and Compass. That's their introductory line of windows. It's a great window. It's better than the builder grade. But like I say, limited lifetime warranty on frame mechanics and 20-year glass warranty. But it has a thin frame, and that's what Shara wanted, was the thinner frame. So there's a limited series of windows that you can buy with that thinner frame. Pella and Compass is one of them, and that's just what she chose for her home.
Okay.
I think it worked out great. I think she.
They're beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. I'm thrilled to death. It just makes the whole house look differently.
Sure.
Sure. And getting back to my little statement about my wife as the man of the house, she's
I'm going to agree with you, Mark.
You probably know her better than I do on some level.
I do, pretty much.
But so to walk us through kind of your consultation installation, what does that look like? Because I know she interviewed a lot of people.
Oh yeah. It was a process. I'm not a dog and pony guy. I'll just say that
right. I can tell that when I met you.
Yeah, I don't do
this
big
guy shoots straight.
Yeah, I shoot pretty straight. I'll show you the windows. I'll show you the samples. Let you know what the different aspects of them are when I'm showing you the windows. But there's no huge sales pitch. There's no pressure. There's no sign today type stuff.
There's no always be closing.
There's not exactly. And I'm not going to spend 4 hours in your house trying to pressure you into buying windows from me.
Right.
That's an aspect that I sell. The reason I sell a lot of the jobs I do is because of that aspect. People are so tired of having that happen to them in general.
Right.
In any home improvement industry.
Right.
It's just very common. When I went to work for Carroll in the 70s, and 80s there in Greenville. He was not that way. He was no pressure, low pressure, a lot like I am. And I took a lot of the traits that I have now from him. And I use them to this day, and I will not deviate from that. So I don't, I don't really condone the way some of these companies do some of their business.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Like I said, we interviewed several, I won't mention names, but there was a lot more pressure to buy, and their prices were so much higher.
Yes.
I mean, it was just ridiculous.
Yeah. Some of them are very,
it was just unbelievable how much they wanted to price these things out.
Exactly.
But we won't knock on that door too much more. But let's talk about grade of windows too, because the difference between double pane and triple pane or whatever. Talk a little bit about some options there, what people could, when they call you, could talk to you about.
Exactly. So yeah, you do have a double pane and triple pane option. Actually, the lady that referred to Shara to me, we did triple pane for her, which is, I would say it's not very common here in the Austin area. There are some people that do them. I'm one of them that can get you the triple pane option. In certain brands.
I never even knew they had an option.
Yeah, it's actually triple pane. It's used a lot up north. It's huge up north.
I bet.
Matter of fact, most all the replacement windows up there are triple pane.
Yeah.
Only due to the severe cold.
Right.
So that's where you get your biggest benefit from triple pane. Here, triple pane is going to be more of a sound deadener for you. If you're on a busy street or busy highway, busy highways near, that's a really good sound deadener. It gives you an extra piece of glass. So there's 3 panes of glass in that one, with the low E coating on the outside pane, and the middle pane is more of a kind of a heat / sound block. And then it has the inside pane also. Still clear to see through. The visible transmittance is not quite as good as the double pane, so it's just a little bit clearer out of the double pane. But if I put them side by side, you can't tell a whole lot of difference. Yeah, you can't tell a whole lot of difference. So the lady that referred to y'all, she specifically wanted triple pane because she had already had triple pane in a couple of her houses in the past. So that's what I sold her. I don't push triple pane. The double pane low E like you guys got in the Pella version, that's a great window. I mean, it's a great glass package. It's certified for Texas, Energy Star rated for Texas. And that's really what matters, is that Energy Star rating.
Yeah, very good. So before we get too farther in, make sure let us know how to get a hold of you, Window Pros, and give you a phone number or website, however people can find you.
Window Pros is LLC is my company name.
Your website?
The website is austinwindowpros.com, www.austinwindowpros.com. My phone number is 512-422-1907. That's my direct cell phone. If I don't answer, I do have an answering service that is staffed, to answer your phone calls, and they can get in touch with me if they need to, or if you need to speak to me immediately, they can get in touch.
Awesome. Well, rarely do I come on this show and promote somebody, but I felt very strongly that you did such a great job.
Well, I appreciate that.
And we just really, I just want to thank you for that.
It means a lot. I appreciate it.
And also, I like to learn, so I bring people on who are experts in the field. In this case, windows and doors, and I want to learn what's going on, so I can go tell my wife what we have. When I get home.
Exactly. Have some knowledge.
Have some knowledge. So we talk about dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now you mentioned energy efficiency, particularly in the north,
right?
With the triple pane. Now, with the heat of the summer, wouldn't that be important in Austin, Texas?
It's huge. It's very important. So the low glass packages from Texas, say, to Michigan. Let's just use that as an example. The Michigan glass package is going to be the triple pane window. It's going to have pretty standard triple pane window. But it's going to have a different low E coating than it does in Texas. So the low E coating determines the Energy Star rating. So in Texas,
can you explain Energy Star real quick?
Yeah, Energy Star. So Energy Star is a certification that allows that window to be certified in a certain zone or region. So there's several different. I think there's 4 or 5 different regions for Energy Star rating, and it goes from the very extreme north to the very extreme south, to the bottom of Texas. We are actually in, I think, Region 5, which is the southern region. So it goes across the bottom half of Texas, Austin included, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, all that stuff. It goes to Florida. That's kind of your major heat areas there. So our Energy Star and our low E coating is based on that specific region. So when we order our windows, it's a given. When you're in a certain zip code or you're in a certain area, those are ordered per se as that type of window glass package.
Yeah,
and that's the difference. So more low E coating in the south, less in the north. So
and what's the coating called?
The low E.
And what does that mean?
Low emissivity. That just actually what it does. It's a coating that goes on the inside of the outer pane of the glass.
Okay.
It actually reflects heat. It has silver oxide in it, and it actually reflects heat and reflects sunlight off of it to keep the heat from transferring through the glass. That's basically what it does.
Got it.
And then there's also argon gas in the middle of those two panes, which you can't see.
Yeah.
But argon is actually a heat dissipator, and it's actually a sound deadener also. So it gives you kind of a couple different qualities. It's standard in the low E366 glass package for the Texas area. That's very standard.
Okay. Now getting back to double versus triple, there has to be some sort of ROI on that deal, because I assume your triple panes will be more expensive.
It is.
But will it ultimately save you some money?
I don't think so.
No.
Personally, no, I don't think so.
It's more for sound?
More for sound, personal preference.
Okay.
If that's what you want, I'll be happy to give you pricing on that. But I typically I don't even mention it most of the time.
Okay.
Because it's really not, and now if you're on a busy road, I had a lady in Georgetown that backed up to a farm to market road, but it was a busy farm to market road. We actually did triple pane on the back of her house and double pane on the front.
Oh, that makes sense.
And she said it made such a difference in the rear of their home, because they really were struggling sleeping at night because people, cars were driving by, they had young kids.
Sure.
So it actually made a big difference.
Yeah, we own a home also in a busy street in Lost Creek. We actually live on Lost Creek. We have a home on Lost Creek. We may be moving back to that's built in 1980. We'll be looking you up again.
Yeah, exactly.
So that triple pane may come into play there, because it's a very, very busy street.
Sure.
Now, getting back to this Energy Star idea, is that a governmental thing?
It's a governmental thing. Yeah, it's government. So it's a rating by the government on certain, and your windows have to meet a certain criteria to meet that. Most of the windows that are produced now will meet that criteria.
Okay.
The new windows that are made, even the builder grade windows, will meet the Energy Star qualification. So.
Is there any type of window or anything that you sell in your world that it may have some sort of tax benefit to it at all?
They do, yeah. Most of them have the tax benefit. The Energy Star qualification is the tax benefit. That's where you get the tax benefit, federal government tax benefit. Not sure what it's going to be for 2025. I unfortunately haven't researched that enough. I believe it's a $600 credit for 2024. So it's pretty.
So we would have a credit.
You'd have a credit, yeah. You sure do. Yeah, you got a credit. I don't know if I even talked to Shara about that.
Yeah, well, you learn something every day.
You learn something every day. So there should be a tax credit involved, because you did all your windows and your doors, and that qualifies, for that tax credit. You have to do a minimum amount of windows. Like you have to do, I think it's 8 windows, I believe.
I think we probably had about 13 or 14.
Yeah, you had, I think, 15 windows and 2 patio doors.
Yeah.
So you well qualify for that.
Well, we're extremely happy with it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So the Energy Star is, like I say, it's a national rating.
Yeah,
and
I've seen it on appliances.
Yeah, seen it on appliances. A lot
maybe
of refrigerators,
ACs, things like that. I didn't know how related to Windows. So let's talk about. And I know this is a tough subject because there's so many variables. But what are some average costs people can sort of in the back of their head expect when they replace it? Maybe like. So
based on a standard, say a 3 foot by 5 foot window,
which is what
y'all had in your house, basically, most of yours were that size. Those are going to be, anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500, each to replace them.
Sure.
A lot of guys don't talk about that. I don't mind talking about it. That's pretty much kind of a standard price range that you're going to fall into. You can go under that a little bit if you want to get a little bit lesser grade window. You can go above that if you want to get a super grade, a Marvin, Pella, Anderson, one of the real high end lines. They're going to be super expensive. But that's a pretty median range right there for a really good,
12 to 15.
12 to 15.
Okay. Yeah, so people can kind of budget
around that.
A little bit. Because...
And then, of course, my estimates are free. So anytime that anyone wants a free estimate, they're welcome to reach out to me. Yeah. And I don't charge anything for that, and I can get you an exact price.
Yeah, well, that's what you did with us. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we interviewed lots of folks. My wife did, I should say, and we got you on board.
Sure.
Now, how about geographical? What's your limit of work scope?
Been to Fort Worth. Been to East Texas. Yeah, I mean, I did my son's windows in Fort Worth. That his neighbor across the street.
Okay.
After I did his neighbor was intrigued. Said, come and do mine. Right. So I'll do them. We don't mind traveling. We don't do it a lot. I would say my geographical location is about 50 miles around Austin.
Williamson County,
Travis,
Hayes County,
going out to Bastrop. Yeah, I go to Temple. Killeen, Copper Scove.
I think you live in Hutto, don't you?
I live in Thrall.
Oh, Thrall. Yeah. And getting back to those prices, I mean, those are remarkably. There's a lot of good value offered because we had some of those windows people come what, $3,000.
Oh, $3,000 plus, yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like,
It's very,
you've
very
lost
common.
your mind.
Very common.
I'm not spending $50,000.
Oh, exactly, right. And that's what I get a lot. I get a lot of that from my customers that see me. And I had a guy in Round Rock just here recently that I gave him a price, and he said, "Are you sure about that price?" And I said, "Yes, sir. Why do you ask me that?" And he said, "Well, let me show you something." And he pulls out a contract or a estimate from another company, and it was 3 times what
It's
mine was.
unbelievable.
And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" He goes, hey, well, "Who do I write the check to?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Well,
yeah.
Window Pros, you know,
Right.
if you're ready to," he said, "I'm ready."
Right.
I didn't have any idea this was a legitimate price. And he was in that $1,200-$1,500 range, and I guess they were probably over $3,000 a piece.
Yeah.
On the other one's easy.
In my experience in the mortgage space is the same thing. As a broker, I'm able to get people a much better deal than they can usually get from a large mortgage company.
Oh, exactly.
Or,
Right.
or bank
Yeah.
possibly. And,
Yeah.
you know, the size of loans these days, I could save them thousands
Thousands
of
of
dollars, you know,
dollars, yeah.
over the same process of buying a
Correct.
house, you know.
Exactly.
So now that may be one of the mistakes, but let's cover a few more mistakes. Price would be one huge mistake
price
people
is one.
make, you know, because they just don't know.
Right.
So you don't know what you don't know.
You know, exactly.
And so that's why part of this conversation is to educate people, including myself.
Right.
What other things made people make a mistake around when choosing windows? Or
Well, I think a lot of times the mistake is made that they actually buy from someone immediately that night. That's what I've found is that I've lost jobs to companies like that, which I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I still sell the way I sell, but a lot of companies, especially a lot of the bigger companies that are national advertisers, you see them on TV, their salesmen, they're called one call closers. So when they go in there, they want a deal
walk out
when
with
they
a
leave.
check
They walk out with a check or a deal. And whether it's financing or whatever it is, I'm not geared, I'm not built that way. So I understand, but they give you incentives that make it look like they're giving you a really good price. And in eventuality,
if you buy tonight,
you're going to, you know, instead of the window being 3,000, it's going to be 2,700.
Right.
We can save you,
save you 10%.
Save you 10% off of that. And
right.
if you buy tonight, well, I think what they don't realize is that if they've gotten other estimates, then they've done themselves a disservice by doing that.
Yeah.
Not that they don't get a good deal. I don't want to insinuate that.
Sure.
Or a good product, but they didn't do their due diligence to check and get some other estimates. And I'm not saying you have to get me to give you an estimate, or you have to get anybody to give you an estimate.
Right.
But it's really good as a standard practice to get 2 or 3 estimates.
Right.
On each project.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. In my world, I wrote a white paper to consumer. It's called a consumer guide that I teach people. It's called The Truth of Lending, where I teach people how to shop for a mortgage.
Right.
I said, this is the questions you want to ask. This is how we make our money, blah, 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 blah.
Exactly.
So they seem to like that. So getting back to, I had a question. Where did it go? It has to do with installation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it seemed to me, I'm speaking right, there was a problem with a couple of our windows in this installation. Was there challenges?
Mm-hmm.
What
challenges? Yeah. So
it's an older home.
It's an older
built
home.
in 1980.
1980. You don't ever know what's going to be square, level, plumb. You really don't know about that until you get that old window out. I mean, if you see something that's obvious, you can see it, but a lot of people are already aware of that. But for instance, around your fireplace, Mark, the 2 windows that were at the fireplace,
yes,
those actually, that floor and that part of the house had settled towards the fireplace, which is very common when you have a lot of rock on it, and that was a whole rock wall on the outside.
Yeah.
Both of those window sills, we noticed after we got the windows installed, the window sills were sloped a little bit. And we put the level on them and showed Shara and said, it's the sills, not the window. The window's nice and level and plumb and works correctly, but the sills are a little off. And that's just something you don't see until you replace that window.
Yeah.
Because the other window had gone a little bit out of level with the sill, so you couldn't really tell there wasn't a disparity. When you put the window in correctly, then you see the disparity in the sill. It's a simple fix. It's popping the sill up and shimming it and just making it look better. It's more an aesthetic thing. It's not an issue there.
Okay. Because it looks great.
Yeah.
It looks great. So anything else around installation people should be aware of?
Oh, I just think that you know, like the dust factor, that we try and control that. We try and contain that as much as we can.
Oh, yeah.
But it is a kind of a dusty process, especially if you have rock on the outside, like
we did. Yeah.
Rock, and we actually would take plastic on the insides of the windows on your house to keep that debris from going in the house so much. But there's only limited ways you can do that. But we try and do our due diligence for protection of the floors, and protection of the windows. around the windows and make sure everything's intact.
Well, y'all did a good job around that too. It's very clean.
Appreciate
as
that.
best you could be.
You bet.
So and then let's talk a little bit about time. We're wrapping it up. I didn't realize we got a few seconds left.
Right.
Man, I had a good time visiting with
you,
Dave.
That was awesome,
I just want to suggest anybody that's still listening that you need to talk to Dave Adams with Window Pros.
Yes.
And at least get a quote and talk to this man because he knows what he's doing. He's
I appreciate that, Mark. I really appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome.